Very good evening. You're watching India Global. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. As always, we get you all the latest stories and updates, including the G7 summit in Canada and the latest in Iran-Israel conflict. But as always, headlines first. The G7 summit in Canada kicks off. The G7 backs Israel, calls Iran as a source of instability. US President Donald Trump abruptly exits the G7 summit early. PM Modi set to attend the G7 outreach session in the next few hours. Israel-Iran trade strikes for fifth consecutive day. Iran's wartime chief of staff killed in Israeli attack. Trump says not in mood to negotiate with Iran. 110 Indian students evacuated from Iran to Armenia. Indian students stuck in the crossfire to fly home soon. NDTV World speaks to Indian students that have been evacuated from Iran. Yet another embarrassment for Pakistani Army Chief Asim Munir, who faces protests in America. Our top story on the show this Tuesday on India Global. Prime Minister Modi has landed at the Calgary International Airport in Canada on Tuesday, and he will be attending the G7 summit that is to take place near Alberta very soon. This is the Prime Minister's first visit to Canada since 2015. It comes following an official invitation from the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. During the 23-hour tour, the Prime Minister will hold bilateral meetings with global leaders and attend the outreach session at the G7 summit. This comes over a month after India launched its Operation Sindoor that targeted terror infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in retaliation for the April 22 Pahalgam terror attacks. Even though India is not a member of the G7, Prime Minister Modi has been invited to the grouping sittings and meetings consistently since 2019. The invitation reflects the kind of importance that India has now in the world and on the new global order where India is now a major stakeholder. The visit has global attention as it marks Prime Minister Modi's first visit to Canada since the diplomatic ties between the two countries deteriorated following the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in 2023 and the diplomatic fallout that followed. All right, let's quickly first play out this report that has been filed by my colleague Maha Siddiqui, who is on ground tracking the summit for us. She's spoken to students in Canada in the wake of, remember, there's been diplomatic uncertainty that has followed. It has impacted people-to-people ties, particularly the student community as well. Let's listen in.
Indian students are a global lot these days. But what that means is a friction between the governments of two countries can have an immediate fallout on this younger lot. I have with me a group of students from India here in Canada. Let's speak to them about their expectations now that the relations between India and Canada seem to be improving. Many thanks all of you for speaking with NDTV. I'll start off with you. What expectation do you now have for the students, considering that there were some unique problems that students from India were facing in Canada? Do you think the fact that Prime Minister Modi is coming to Canada is a good sign even for the students?
I think it's an amazing sign, and as someone who calls herself a youth leader here in Calgary and Cheshire, I'm very, very happy to say that we, the students here as well as the Indian diaspora, we are eagerly ready to welcome Prime Minister Modi ji into Canada, and we really hope that this visit leads to a better alignment of Canada and India's values as well as their goals for both nations, and they work towards developing and building a mutually beneficial and effective relationship and alliance which can help and benefit both populations of India and Canada, and definitely can help some of our students as well, and we don't feel so split amongst our loyalties as well as amongst which country to favor.
I have with me a group of
ठीक है?
business persons here in Calgary, and they are keenly awaiting the Prime Minister's visit in the hope that this will act as an icebreaker. What are the sectors where you see an improvement in trade between India and Canada, especially once the relationship gets better?
Yeah, I think it would be mainly oil and gas, which is basically India is importer. LNG they can import from Canada, and then oil also, and that is the big for India. And then for Canada, it is vice versa. It should be basically defense and technology and IT.
With regards to issues like visas as well, they become a problem whenever there is a friction between the two countries, causing a lot of problem to the common man. But I want you all to explain the fallout on the trading community as well, the business persons, when such visa hurdles are created.
So I can say one thing, there is so many gossips going between both countries. Right now, the relation going to start right away. So might be once they sit both countries together, there is so many things they have to settle, and especially the visa, student visas or work permits. Right now, 2025, there is so many visas is expiring. Fortunately, if both countries has like a good relation, definitely they can give like a good opportunity for the newcomers or like students or everyone. We are expecting those things.
All right, so that second was the conversation that Maha, my colleague, had with the students there. And then, of course, we'll also play out at some point a conversation she had with prominent businessmen. Because remember, when we talk about Prime Minister Modi's visit to Canada, we're talking about the ties that have taken a major hit in the last 18 months or so, and that has an impact on several aspects, whether it is the people-to-people ties, whether it's the business relationship, or the strategic aspect also that has suffered due to and predominantly under Justin Trudeau's tenure. Before we move ahead, the big questions on the show, as always, India's G7 power play. Bilaterals to business, what really is lined up? First up, will, as far as this G7 summit is concerned, will the Middle East tensions overshadow the G7 summit? Will India be the voice of reason in a divided West? Trump's early exit signals deep divisions within the G7. What does that mean, and what could be the options and alternatives for India to move ahead? And then lastly, will there be a reset in the India-Canada tie, something we've been talking about? So viewers, if you're tuning in right now, the G7 summit that is taking place is in the shadow of the Israel-Iran tensions that have escalated dramatically. Donald Trump, in fact, exited prematurely from the summit. It was a shock exit of the American president, and also puts the summit in limbo, doesn't it, in terms of what all can we now expect, even though the bilaterals that India will have will be extremely significant. Brahmachilani and Jayajit Bhattacharya joins me on the broadcast. Brahmachilani, to you first. Before we come to the specifics in terms of the India-Canada relationship, I want to also now talk big picture in terms of the G7 summit. This is a summit that is taking place in the shadow of conflicts, one of which has escalated dramatically in the last 24 hours. It is taking place in the backdrop of a US president who has chosen to go back, who also had a verbal altercation with the French president, looking like there's a very deep division within the West. What are we really expecting from the G7 summit per se that is going to kickstart in the next couple of hours?
The fact that the summit is unable to agree on a joint statement tells you a lot about the divisions within the G7. The G20, in fact, has replaced the G7 as the premier global economic forum, but the G7 leaders still believe that they can run the world, they can dictate terms to the world, even though the G member states' share of the global GDP has declined markedly. And in fact, as their economic strength declines, the G7 states' global clout also diminishes. This is why, in the West itself, the relevance of the G7 is being questioned. And I think because of the decline of the G7 as an institution, the G7, to stay relevant, needs non-Western countries like India. India is projected to remain the world's fastest growing major economy for the next 10 years, or maybe at least for the next 8 years. So India, as you pointed out earlier, Gauri, has been getting invited has been getting invited to all the G7 summits. And that really underscores India's growing geopolitical standing, its growing geopolitical clout, and the fact that India now, as the world's largest country in terms of population, is a rising power, and you can't have discussions on international issues without India being present.
Indeed, and while of course the strategic aspect of the relations is extremely important, so is trade. More so since is it happening in the backdrop of the Trump tariffs, which have actually caused a deep amount of unease in the entire Western world as well. And Mr. Bhattacharya, let me ask this question to you, Jayajit Bhattacharya, who is in fact the president of the Center for Digital Economy Policy Research. I want to ask you this, that in terms of the kind of trade agendas that you expect G7 to be able to shape, the kind of roadmap do you think it is going to put forth, and also the challenge that it faces, the Trump tariffs being one?
There has been a weakening of the global institutions related to trade. We have seen unilateral tariffs being put in by US, which is clearly the largest economy in the world, and simultaneously the weakening of institutional structures such as WTO, where we do not even have an appellate authority as we speak. So if there is a translation by any of the countries, and in this particular case we're talking about US, where do we even take the matter to in WTO? So clearly the number one issue will be trade in the G7 discussions. And along with it, number two is a continuous deterioration in the security outlook of the world. And the latest being the Iran-Israel conflict that has erupted while G7 is going on. So these are the two major issues that the G7 will be looking at. Along with it, I'm not entirely sure whether it will be discussed or not, but there will be an underlying feeling that after the Bretton Woods collapse and the US dollar coming up as the global currency, the faith in US dollar is getting undermined because of the developments that have happened with the US administration and the rest of the world. And therefore, what should be the alternate mechanism of trade be as we move forward in the next 5 to 6 years? So those will be discussions, or at least issues, that will be in people's mind and the leaders' mind as they get into the G7 discussions in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, and while those discussions start, and trade will be extremely important, Brahma Chilani, one cannot not point out the fact that here is a G7 summit without the American president, who also had, as we were speaking, the verbal altercation with his French counterpart. But the fact that the Trump has been so dismissive about his Western allies, about the West in general, where does this put, what can we expect in terms of this year's outcome, if at all any?
The West is at a crossroads. It's at a crossroads not just because of Trump. Much before Trump returned to the White House, there were already political tremors rattling across the West, especially political popular discontent and a rightward shift in politics across Europe that we have been seeing. So the West, as we all know, accounts for just 12% of the global population. Yet it dominates international institutions, and it has a hold on the international financial architecture. Now, what Trump is doing is basically playing the role of a disruptor. He's shaking up the international system. In a way, it's good for India, and it's good for the developing world, because there is a long due reform of international institutions. And what Trump is doing is administering a shock. The shock therapy could ultimately lead to reform of the global order, because the global order today is an order dominated by the West. The rules have been set by the West, but the West really, in terms of its economic share of the global GDP, should not be playing this kind of role. So in a way, Trump is doing what is not his real intention is. His real intention is not to bring about a more balanced global order. Yet his actions unintentionally are creating the momentum toward revision of existing institutions.
Okay, which, Mr. Bhattacharya, as I said, the two parallel threads that I want to address, one, the global trends that are happening, the big global events in the backdrop of which this summit is taking place, and parallelly, what you're an expert of, trade, that is likely to be so important simply because Canada said that we want India in the summit for, well, want of many reasons, one of which is the fact that the Canadian economy needs an economic growth engine that India provides. So in your assessment, how do you see India's role and also the kind of Indian trade relationships in the backdrop of such a clear, overt statement by the Canadian Prime Minister saying that the Canadian economy needs the Indian economy's growth stimulus?
The only way for a country like India to maintain its strategic autonomy is to continue to grow both economically and militarily. As we have seen in recent times, that it is not enough to be only economically powerful, but it is also extremely important to be militarily powerful in the current geopolitical situation where there are conflicts all over the place. And therefore, coming back to what India should be doing to maintain its strategic autonomy is to maintain the relationships with every single country from a position of strength. And that position of strength needs to be earned. And it's a difficult, long journey. But we have already become the fourth largest economy, and we are poised to become the third largest economy. And we are clearly the fastest growing large economy in the world. And I think those are strengths that needs to be leveraged, because when we come down to the table, the world has become increasingly revolving around realpolitik in terms of short-term interests, and those interests can be traded only if you've got something to trade with, which means that you need to have an economic strength and backed by a very strong military to ensure that you are in a position of strength when having these conversations / negotiations with the rest of the world.
Brahmachalani, final question I want to ask you, which is that this is a summit that is taking place in the backdrop of the escalating tensions between Iran and Israel. The G7 statement has been very clear that Iran needs to back off. They are also supporting Israel's strikes. But where do you see this going? Do you see the G7 as in terms of ensuring that at least one of the sides exercises restraint, or do you see G7 playing a major role in being able to come about with some sort of a ceasefire?
The fact that Trump agreed to sign on to a statement on the Israel-Iran conflict only after the wording was changed. The wording was changed to please Trump, who wanted the statement to be clearly partisan. He wanted the statement to take Israel's side and not call for de-escalation by Israel and Iran. He wanted to pin the blame only on Iran. And that really goes to show that the G7 really cannot play the role of an honest broker. Yet, if there is going to be a way out of this conflict, nuclear diplomacy will have to be restored. The nuclear diplomacy has been derailed by Israel's attack on Iran, but Iran today is completely isolated. It stands alone. Its missile defenses have been decimated. Its arsenal of missiles is dwindling, and the only escape route for Iran today is to return to talks with the US. And I think with a weakened hand, Iran may have to submit to Trump's demands in a way that it could have escaped had a deal been reached before Israel's attack began.
All right. Trump left the G7 summit early. He said he has something more important than Iran-Israel crisis. There's an expectation that he will be in the Situation Room with his advisors, and there will be some sort of a positive movement and at least an update on that front. All right, viewers, I'm going to slip into a very short break. And gentlemen, thank you so much for helping us decode what could be the big takeaways of the G7 summit. I'm going to slip into a break, come back on the other side, talk more about the specific bilaterals, 4 important bilaterals that Prime Minister Modi will hold today. What could be the key focus areas there? We come back and decode that. Stay with us. So viewers, there will be some very important bilateral discussions that the PM will hold after the outreach session. In fact, before the outreach session, there will be 4 key bilaterals that the PM will have. It will include one with the Canadian Prime Minister, the Italian Prime Minister as well, Giorgia Meloni. Along with that, there will be the German Chancellor and also the Ukraine President. All of 4 will be very crucial. It will further India's trade interests, geostrategic interests, and of course the big one, Canada, in terms of putting a complete reset button, or at least pushing the reset button when it comes to the ties. Let's get in a voice to decode this in detail. We have with us Ambassador Sachdev, who joins us to talk more on this. These are all very important bilaterals that will take place. Sir, in your assessment, what would be your expectation from first the India-Canada bilateral relations, that is taking a bilateral discussion that will take place?
I think this is an important opportunity for us to reset our bilateral ties that have faced considerable disruptions in the past for various allegations made by the Canadian side, which have upended not only diplomatic ties but also people-to-people ties. Indian government has been miffed at accusations being hurled about India's involvement in Niger killing and also about elections meddling in Canada. And these were not substantiated by the past Canadian government of Prime Minister Trudeau. And that led to soured relations between us. Prime Minister Carney is an economist. He faces an economy that has been upended by the US tariff, the largest trading partner of Canada, and he needs all the friends that he can get.
Okay.
India and Canada have vibrant trade ties. Particularly significant apart from $8.5 billion.
Let me quickly ask you, sir, what about
Yeah.
Germany and Italy? Those were the other 2 important bilaterals that will take place. How do you see those? A lot of focus would be on trade there?
I think so. I think these 2 are very important components of European Union, which has been negotiating with India a comprehensive trade and economic agreement likely to be signed by the end of this year. Some kinks remain about natural persons and tariffs, etc. And Germany being the European Union's largest economy, Italy being having a vibrant exchange with India in trade lately, are 2 important partners that India would be able to try and persuade bilaterally to have EU take a more purposive line and not to insist on its own domestic agenda.
All right, I'm going to leave it there, sir. We're going to keep tracking that big story later in the evening as well when these proceedings does take place. But I'm completely timed out. I have to take a very short break and I come back on the other side to talk about, well, the other big story, the Israel-Iran escalation, 5th night of strikes. What does it mean? Even as Indian students are caught in the crossfire. We're going to talk more on that and also get an Indian student to understand the plight and anguish that they are facing there. More on that after this break. Stay with us. On India Global, we now focus on the other big story, the Israel-Iran conflict. Well, viewers, US President Donald Trump has said that he wants a real end to Iran's nuclear ambitions, even as the conflict between Israel and Iran has entered its 5th day. President Trump indicated that he may send senior American officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and his Middle East envoy, to Tehran for possible talks. He has also requested the National Security Council be prepared in the Situation Room as he is returned from the G7 summit in Canada, and he's expected to take stock, even as he then went on to say that, well, if Iran wants to talk to me, they know where to call him. Now, in the midst of these mixed signals, there is an update that's come in terms of the actual situation on ground. Israel's defense minister issued a stark warning to Iran's supreme leader, drawing comparisons to Saddam Hussein's fate. Israeli airstrikes have reportedly killed several top Iranian commanders, leaving Khamenei's inner circle in complete disarray. Iran has responded with a massive barrage. Remember, for Iran, its biggest arsenal in its war arsenal is actually the ballistic missiles, the supersonic missiles, to which the Iron Dome of Israel is effective but gets tested. And that is where this war is going. Over 100 missiles and hundreds of drones aimed at Israeli cities were fired. Explosions were reported in Tehran, while attacks near the Strait of Hormuz have raised global alarm with regard to oil supplies, with regard to shipping lines that could be impacted. Diplomacy and destruction are unfolding in parallel. The region now teeters on the edge of a wider war, and India is moving swiftly to ensure the safety of its citizens in Iran is of paramount importance. Amidst the escalating tension in Israel, the Ministry of External Affairs has confirmed that Indian students have been moved out of Tehran, and others are still in the city, are being moved out and are being advised to leave immediately. The Indian Embassy has issued emergency contact numbers. If we have those numbers, let's flash that on our screens, the helpline numbers, so that anybody who's watching this broadcast knows which are the numbers to dial so that they can get in touch with the Ministry of External Affairs helpline and also the Indian Embassy there. India is ensuring that every student stranded there is help is reaching out to them, and they are able to get out and be evacuated safely, even as several countries, including the US, has told its citizens in Israel that it is not in a position to evacuate. Remember that, viewers. America has issued this advisory to its citizens in Israel that it cannot evacuate its citizens. Look at what India is doing. Each and every of our students we want to be in touch with. We want to ensure that all of them are brought back safely and are provided the safe haven and the land evacuation routes. Let's put out those big questions that we are posing right now, and hopefully we'll get an answer to as well. First up, how long will the entire evacuation process take? Remember, a lot of parents are agitated and anxious right now because while they may be able to speak to their children, they don't know how long this entire process is going to take. Let's move ahead. Is Armenia the only possible escape route? They are going to the Armenian border and then coming out, but are there more routes that are being evaluated? Are the authorities talking to each other to ensure that they can expedite this entire process? That's a question that must be going through the minds of the parents as well. What happens to the degrees? Remember, these are all medical students. What happens to their degrees, their courses? When will they go back? Will there be a semester that will be missed? All those are very genuine questions for students who are studying there. From scratch to, will they have to start from scratch or will they continue? Again, those are questions that every student would be wanting to know, but there are no answers right now. And as far as Israel is concerned, there are a large number of Indians who are in Israel as well. What are the exit routes there? Not that many students there, but there are also a large number of Indians there as well. Let's quickly now rope in guests joining us this evening, Omar Anes, Faizan Nabi, as well as Anath as well, joining us on the broadcast. Anath is from the president of the Israel Asia Chamber of Commerce, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Faizan Nabi is a first-year MBBS student from the Carney University of Medical Sciences in Iran. And Omar Anes is a Middle East expert, joining us live from Ankara. Okay, Faizan, let me start with you first. I want to understand from you how things are unfolding right now. Is the embassy in touch with you? What are the details that you can share with us in terms of how soon will you be evacuated? Is Faizan with us? Okay, before we get in, Faizan, internet connectivity is a challenge in Iran right now. Let's get in Omar first, and then we get in Faizan at some point of time. Omar, how do you see this entire situation unfolding, and the fact that you have these civilians who are caught in the crossfire?
What I see right now is that Israel is trying to build maximum pressure on Iranian government. Israel is issuing so many warnings, and now the Trump administration seems to be supporting the Israeli view, despite the fact that the Trump administration was not convinced with Israeli suggestions about the fact that Iran might be very close to have a nuclear weapon within 3 or 4 weeks, as it was saying. But one thing I would like to say here is that Israeli agenda is now focused to change the regime in Tehran. And I think that Europeans and, of course, the Americans should also be worried of this agenda, because Iran is not Afghanistan, Iran is not like Iraq. And you can imagine if regime change agenda in Afghanistan brought Taliban back, and in Iraq it brought ISIS, what we are expecting from Iran, it is going to be very disastrous, devastating for the entire region, and especially for India and Pakistan and all of South Asia and Central Asia. So regime change agenda is not going to be the solution which Israel is proposing. In fact, Israel's main agenda is to keep the region extremely unstable, so that from the instability of the region and from the chaos of the region and from bloodshed of the region, Israel can remain the only so-called democracy in the world. And this is a typical colonial mindset which Israel is implementing from taking the cue
enough
from...
Israel bashing. It is still a democracy. And it is the only democracy in the region.
No, it is not democracy.
Okay, so elections do happen there. Do let me know if elections happen in any other part of that region. But as I said, this is not about Israel bashing. The question was very simple, straightforward to you, which was about the citizens, Indian citizens who are stranded there, efforts that are being made to get them out of there, and also the latest in terms of the war right now, where Donald Trump has gone back saying that there will be an update in 48 hours. Ms. Annette Bernstein-Rake, I hope I got your pronunciation of your name right. Pardon me if I haven't. But I want to understand from you, how do you see this latest developments unfolding, especially with President Trump indicating that he's going to be speaking to his advisors in the Situation Room. He may be doing so as we speak, with an expectation that maybe some sort of a solution may be found. He said not ceasefire, maybe something permanent. What is it that you think could be the options on the table?
Israel, first, good evening. Israel is seeking to dismantle the capabilities of Iran nuclear program. For that purpose, we're doing the work, but it will be quicker if US will join forces with us, and with their capabilities, we can conclude the work quicker. I'm very, I would say, not comfortable with what my former speaker said about Israel agenda. Israel agenda is not to change the regime. It might be a side effect, but definitely it's not our role to change a regime. Our role is to protect ourselves from a regime that wants to destroy us, and we will not let this happen. There will not be a second Holocaust in the Jewish life. We only want to stop the military nuclear capabilities of Iran and stop manufacturing of missiles which are attacking Israel. Now, they are from Iran, but those missiles the Iranian missiles were used against Israel from Gaza, from Lebanon, from Syria, from Yemen, and now from Iran.
Indeed, multiple fronts opened against Israel, and all of them coordinating. Houthis also said that they are coordinating an attack with Iran on Israel. So that is something that the Houthis have said. Let's get in now. Faizan Nabi with us on the broadcast. Faizan, I want to then speak to you about the latest that's happening right now in terms of your safe passage out of Iran. Where exactly are you right now? Have you spoken to the Indian authorities? What's your next step?
Thank you for taking me up. I am in Kirman, Iran. It is relatively very safe place if we compare it with Tehran or Shiraz. Since day one, since the tensions have arisen, since day one, the embassy has been playing an active role in facilitating our safe passage back to India. We are waiting for their command. As of now, the situation stands like this: those who were in Tehran, every university like Iran University of Medical Science, Tehran University of Medical Science, or Shahid Beshti, the students of these respective universities, they have been taken to Qom. Qom is another province of Iran. It's relatively safer again. So as of now, they are in Qom. It has been one day. They were taken to Qom the other day in the morning. And students of Shiraz, Arak, they have been taken to a place that's known as Yazd. So far, my university is concerned. We were actually about to start our final exams today, which means 17th of June.
Okay.
But the university has cancelled all the exams till mid of October.
Are you in touch with students who are being evacuated?
Yes.
What are they saying? What is the evacuation passage?
Only one batch of Indian students have been taken out from Iran, which means they have been evacuated. That is a batch who were from Urmia University of Medical Science. Urmia shares a border with Armenia, so 90 to 100 students have been evacuated, and I think they will be flying to India in a day or two.
Mm-hmm. And you will continue to stay there, right? Because you feel that you don't need to be evacuated.
No, for the uncertainty, the fear, the horror, it is same. If you talk to a student in Kirman or you talk to a student in Tehran, we are horrified, we are traumatized, as equal as our parents. And for students who are in Kirman, we were actually advised to tuck up our bags. That's done. We were advised to pack our bags. And since till morning, it was the plan that we will be relocated to Yazd. But following that order, a more order came up that says that we have to stay here in Kirman, and in a day or two, we will be directly evacuated from Kirman.
Okay. Quick closing comments from the other two guests as we wrap things up. Omer, how soon do you see this ending, given, as I said, the Trump administration is looking at some permanent solution?
I think Iran is still willing to have a direct communication with the Trump administration and to secure some sort of assurance, because Iran was very serious, and Iran was, it was Trump administration's initiative to have a negotiated outcome. So okay. Iran is, I think, looking an opportunity.
All right. And Ms. Annette, what do you say about the possible solution that the Trump administration may come out with?
We look forward to peace. If via negotiation we can terminate the military nuclear program, definitely it's welcomed in anything. We seek peace. That's what we want. We want to create IT. We want to have an high-tech nation. Our hands are sent to peace. And if Trump is able to do it, we say welcome, inshallah.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us on this edition of India Global. I'm going to slip into a short break, come back on the other side, talk more about, well, what's up with Asim Munir? Why is he becoming the butt of so many jokes? We come back and talk more on that. Well, I'm shifting now focus to the Pakistani army chief. Well, imagine throwing your own birthday party, shouting from rooftops about how everyone wants you there, only to show up and find out that the cake was never for you. In fact, you weren't even invited. Now imagine being so embarrassed, and instead of going home quietly, you do organize a smaller party next door, just to save face. Enter Pakistan's self-declared field marshal and full-time democracy enthusiast, Asim Munir. He told the world he'd be honored at the US Army's 250th anniversary celebrations. The only problem? Well, the White House said this is false. No foreign military leaders are invited. But Asim Munir, refusing to be outdone by facts, held a backup party, or a diaspora engagement event, if you want to call it, at the Four Seasons, with protesters chanting "Shame on you, dictator," right outside. This latest embarrassment follows Asim Munir's supposed promotion to Field Marshal after being humiliated during Operation Sindoor. For those keeping track, that makes him the second Field Marshal in Pakistani history and arguably the first to be honored for losing a military battle against India, and which wasn't a success by any stretch of imagination, even for the Pakistani state-run media, which had to squint to find the win. And while Asim Munir was busy dodging American applause that never existed, back home, the Pakistani people have been left with inflation, censorship, and the army's ever-expanding definition of democracy. So what's the takeaway? Well, if you're not invited to the big leagues, don't fake it till you actually make it. Because when the only reception you get in Washington is a protest and a fact check, it is time to smell the coffee. Well, I'm now turning attention to the UK, where a prayer meeting took place for the AI 171 victims. It was, remember, a flight that was from Ahmedabad scheduled to go to London Gatwick Airport. Aircraft full of people who love London, had family there, or had dreams of being in the city for work or education, or to just return home. They did not make it, and just as much as it hurts in Ahmedabad, so does it in London as well. A multi-faith prayer meeting was held at the Indian Embassy, Indian High Commission, attended by the British Deputy Prime Minister, Canadian Ambassador, and all those people who had connection with the victims and the family members of all those people. Take a look at Radhika Iyer's report on a city full of heavy hearts.
You offered some Zoroastrian prayers, some Parsi prayers.
That's right.
Tell us the significance of that prayer briefly.
Well, it is basically, it's called the Ashem Bahu prayer. And as I mentioned, it's the very first prayer we are taught as a child, like within 2 years by a mother. And it's the very last prayer we learn when we pass away. And it's primarily a prayer to the importance of doing righteousness and good deeds. And it is only those good deeds which give happiness to all of us. So this is then to all the departed souls, because that is what we are remembered for, and that's what our everlasting memory. So when we pass away, we remember the departed, and sadly, in this instance, it's more traumatic than before. So that's what the prayer was about.
Phil, you represent the Jewish community in the UK. Your presence here and the significance of what you mentioned during that prayer.
Well, this is a horrendous tragedy that knows no religion, knows no nationality. As it happens, I'm of Indian origin. My grandparents are from Mumbai, but regardless of that, this is a tragedy that I think all of us around the world have felt. So I really want to take this opportunity to show solidarity with the families who are affected and with India, because this is a tragedy I think we all feel very deeply.
Radhika Iyer also spoke with some students there who've been impacted and hit by this terrible tragedy that struck a few days back. Listen in.
What are your thoughts at this stage? What brings you here? What made you come out of home and join this prayer meeting?
So it was very scary, and I was really very scared about whatever happened there, and my condolences to the families of the deceased.
There were multi-faith prayers were offered because there are so many tragic stories, unfortunately, young students who had bags full of dreams, hearts full of hopes and for a new future. So it's not just lives lost, but so many young people whose futures are lost. What's your state of mind?
I mean, it's a very devastating news to hear, and even though I haven't lost anyone yet, but definitely one of my close friends have they lost a family member, and I think just right now the support and there's no words that we all have, and we just need to have just a peace of mind and just a bit of space of what has happened, and
you're just
we can't move on from it. So yeah, it is hard for me as a student, because I heard there are students on the flight as well, young ones, and it does affect me. Even though I haven't lost a family member, but it definitely hurts me a lot. And I've been mourning so far from the day it has happened, and it hasn't been easy at all.
All right, viewers, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Global. Thanks so very much for watching.